So a lot of giving was started by Indiaspora in many different forms. We also formed a group a few years ago called India Philanthropy Alliance, IPA, where we brought together all the India-based organizations who had US nonprofits, US 501c3s, brought them together to share best practices to grow the pie in the US. But in the past year or two, we've started looking at Give India as an organization. I've known Atul, the CEO, also on the board of Nudge, one of the other organizations he's part of, and really seen what Atul and his organizations brought to the table. And during the crisis, during the COVID crisis, really saw what Give India had done. And Indiaspora has its own philanthropy team as well. So the idea was germinated, I think, maybe over a beer. I don't know, Atul. But it was like, why not get the two organizations together? And so really, by bringing the two groups together, we want to witness and see what can happen. What is the potential? You saw the previous panel talk about doubling giving and so forth. Now, this organization has the capability to actually help deliver that. So I just want to bring up both Sanjeev Joshipura back on stage, Sanjeev, but also Atul Satija, who's the CEO of GiveIndia. Please welcome them. So the question to you is, 1 + 1 is doubling the philanthropy in 5 years. Tell us how you guys are going to do it.
Simple. No, thanks, Amar. Atul, I think it might be a good idea to have, in the brief 15 minutes that we've got, to talk about how we got to where we are. So talk about the recent past at GiveIndia and Indiaspora in terms of our philanthropic journeys. Talk about the present state, which is why we decided to ally, and then talk about the opportunity that lies ahead in the future. Yeah? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So maybe, Atul, if you want to start, I would be honored to be named Atul Satija. Unfortunately, I'm named what I am. But anyway, if you want to start, Atul, by talking about where GiveIndia got to where it is now.
I picked up the GiveIndia journey about 5 years back from a person who's super inspiring. Many of you may know the founder of GiveIndia, Venkat Krishnan. The first 3 years were mostly building the foundation of GiveIndia, transforming GiveIndia from a retail giving platform to being a tech startup in a way, investing in the organization, investing in people, building the right culture for the organization to respond to the needs on the ground. And when COVID happened, it was almost like we were preparing ourselves to be able to respond to crisis the years before. And just around that time, many of you know the history of GiveIndia, may know that GiveIndia has always been a retail giving platform. So we always took money from individuals or allowed nonprofits to do crowdfunding on the website and donate money. When COVID happened, while we saw the retail campaigns do really well and start to give, it almost felt morally uncomfortable to not take requests from institutions, corporates, foundations, HNIs, to support the nonprofits that were doing the real hard work on the ground. So the big shift that happened just when the first wave hit in March 2020 was GiveIndia opened itself up to taking institutional money. And when that came in, within a few days of getting the first check, we realized that the questions that institutional donors were asking were very different. GiveIndia was used to solving for trust, not solving for competency, impact, and all the things that institutional givers care very differently about than retail donors. So what we did very quickly is that we set up what we thought would be a panel of experts that could guide us to sail through the COVID response by putting an advisory board for the COVID response. We called it India COVID Response Fund. And then we put up something called a steering committee that could actually make decisions on a capital allocation. And I think that really changed the game for us. Institutional donors found a lot of trust and confidence in that design. And we saw insane amount of outpouring of generosity, not just from India, but from diaspora as well in US. I think that was a big shift for us. While retail was always our DNA and we could continue to see that giving scale, the last 2 years of this response actually totally changed GiveIndia as an organization to where we are today. 70% of our giving today is institutional giving, which was 0 2 years back. 30% of our giving is retail giving, which is in absolute numbers very, very large. Last year, we were honored to partner with 500 plus nonprofits that we directly contributed to, and more than 2,500 nonprofits that actually raised money on the platform on top. Collectively, the platform was able to channel more than $170 million to charities across the country, something that we ourselves didn't imagine that the COVID response globally would amount to. In terms of geographic distribution, the reason why this partnership is of very particular interest is that as GiveIndia, we always had retail donors come to the platform and donate. And those amounts would be $100, $50, $200, and once in a while you'll have a 10,000 donation on the platform. But I think during COVID, we realized that Diaspora has a very, very distinct way of giving. Because of the market that Diaspora is in, that has actually have much higher percentage of formal giving. Right? Indian giving is very large, but it is informal. Formal giving is very large in US, and people actually have an inherent trust on tech systems and platforms. So funny incident is that when people come to my website, Indian donors come to the website and spend 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Foreign donors, Diaspora actually comes and spends 1/4 the time and gives 4x the money per visit. So they come, donate, and leave. While people from India come and spend time, study everything, go back, talk to the family, come back again, and then give. So we realized that, look, there is a audience that is primed for giving because they inherently trust nonprofits. That is actually not very straightforward in India. So anyways, now roughly about 35–40% of our giving is actually Diaspora. 60% is within India. It is a huge number. That number used to be on retail about the same, but institutional giving of 70% and 40% of that is a very large number. So yeah, that's where GiveIndia is. I think from where we are, it's very early days of giving from an Indian community globally for the causes in India. For a country of 300–400 million poor people, per capita philanthropic need to unlock government capital or mainstream market sort of trickle down is not a small number at all. And the need for nonprofit ecosystem is in billions of dollars. And I think our hope is that we are able to support the nonprofit system in India, ecosystem in India, with what they need so that they can actually go and serve the communities on the ground. So super excited about this.
Fantastic.
But
go ahead.
before you fire the next question, do you also want to talk about how Indiaspora has evolved in the last couple of years in particular?
Absolutely, Atul. So I'll answer your question in 1 second, but the funny thing is in you talking about how GiveIndia has evolved over the past couple of years, you have already set the stage for why we are doing this alliance, in the sense that you talked about trust deficit, you talked about solving for impact, you talked about institutional versus retail, that balance. In many of those ways, that kind of is the genesis of this particular alliance and why this makes sense, which we'll get to also. But to answer your question directly, evolution of philanthropy at Indiaspora. So, couple of things there. I think MR already mentioned this when he was introducing the two of us. He talked about how during COVID, Indiaspora, in alliance with several partner organizations, mobilized dramatically. We normally don't, at Indiaspora, do fundraising in response to every crisis. That is not why we are set up. That is not our forte. But COVID was different. It was an existential crisis. And so we did mobilize. And at that time also, Atul, as you very well know, we were working with several organizations. We were working with Goonj. We were working with Wish Foundation, with Edelgive. We were working directly with GiveIndia. And we realized at that time that the expertise that GiveIndia really presents is something that we lack towards our vision of doubling Indian diaspora philanthropy. We have the diaspora angle, we have those connections, we have those contacts, we have an understanding of how giving occurs in the US by Indian diaspora. What we lack is we don't have the ability in India to talk about directing funds. We don't know the ecosystem on the ground well enough. We don't have the technology platforms and infrastructure that you possess. And that is why it made sense. And so the evolution of our philanthropy at Indiaspora is in a couple of ways, as I was alluding to in the beginning. First of all, we have a team, I should say, we had a team that was exclusive to Indiaspora, which is now part of this 50-50 joint venture, as one might say, between our organizations. Headed by, this new venture is of course headed by Ashish Shah, who is the head of giving from North America for Give India, and we have Pooja and Meera as well, who are now formally part of this team. So we were very happy that we could bring to the table people who are already steeped in what we were doing in the philanthropic side in terms of giving to India. That's one. Second, as you very well know from having partnered with us before, on a case-to-case basis, we were doing Chalo Give year by year, right? So Chalo Give was a combination effort of retail philanthropy, where there were the $10 and the $20 donors, as well as high net worth people contributing towards what was our effort to give to India, yeah, during COVID. I think now what makes a lot of sense for us at Indiaspora is to seize Chalo Give in terms of an effort to give to India. We may still continue, as our friends in the audience know, we discussed yesterday that Indiaspora also has plans and ideas about giving where you live and giving to America. So we may still continue Chalo Give in another guise potentially. But in terms of giving to India, based on what Give India already does in the US, both on the side of institutional giving, on the side of corporate giving, all of that, which is what this alliance is focused on. And then separately, the way that you have cracked or are cracking the retail giving nut, it makes sense that Give India really takes that over, and we assist Give India in the sense of providing the expertise, providing the diaspora contacts, the diaspora know-how, and all of that. So that's just an evolution of thought from Indiaspora side on our philanthropy.
Yeah. No, I think it's I see it as MR said 1 + 1. 2, I feel 1 + 1 is far more than 11 in this case. I think it's a huge opportunity because the organizations were very, very different, right? What we really understand is the work of the nonprofits on the ground that we get to represent when we go and talk to donors. But we don't have a team in US to actually represent that. And you have a team that's representing the needs of India to the diaspora community as a US-based organization. And I think in that sense that because you have team on the ground in US, you understand diaspora, you have ecosystem there, and diaspora is asking you questions on like where should we give, how do we give, and we bring trust to the table and the nonprofit impact to the table. I think it is going to benefit the ecosystem and the nonprofits really on the ground, actually helping communities in India. So yeah, looking forward to that.
I think, Atul, it might also be a good idea to end in the last maybe 3-4 minutes that we have to talk about the opportunity that lies ahead. So what is your sense of where this alliance could help in terms of moving forward in really doubling Indian diaspora philanthropy?
Yeah. See, I think, if you just look at a higher level, diaspora is doing really, really, really well in US. There is large amount of wealth that Indians have amassed in US, thanks to all the hard work put by a generation, 2 generations there. Certain parts of diaspora actually gives very well. Right? Most of the history of giving is actually in the East Coast within US for non-diaspora communities as well, but even within diaspora community, if you look at nonprofits in India who have raised money, it's mostly East Coast, historically. But I think in the new age wealth that we have seen from tech entrepreneurs coming on the West Coast side and now spread across the US, because it's a younger audience, they are just getting exposed to the idea of giving and the idea of wealth. So I see a very, very large opportunity in US, just given how well Indians are doing in the US. But I also think that to be able to leverage that opportunity, it needs a lot of priming, evangelization, selling to, solving for trust in India, not just for retail giving, but also for institutional giving. And that effort is what we'll have to put as organizations. I'm aware of certain other communities of other countries where the diaspora actually has donor-advised funds, the DAF instrument that exists in US, which is actually double-digit $1 billion for their countries, right? I would love to see Indian diaspora actually having a DAF or a non-DAF collective philanthropy that is reaching that scale with or without GiveIndia. That'll be an awesome place to be. And if we can play a role in that journey, that'll be really nice. So that's sort of, to me, the opportunity. But I would love to hear from you. How do you see this, right? What would be success for this partnership mean to you?
So from my perspective, I agree with everything that you've said, but I'll just add to that. From my perspective, Atul, there are a couple of things. I think first and foremost, the Indian diaspora, as was mentioned by Ashish Dhawan in his previous talk, which we had recorded, gives at 1/20th the level of several other communities. So there is a tremendous amount to go there, because we've been discussing over the past day and a half here that the Indian diaspora community is very wealthy, is now starting to come into its own in terms of giving back, is looking at that much more seriously than they had before. So the opportunity there is tremendous. At a high level, what I would like, what I perceive, and what I hope this alliance will become is that it will become the absolute go-to place for North American giving, for Indian diaspora giving from North America, from the United States specifically to India, right? And on a more personal level, I would really hope to see that every second, every third household of the Indian diaspora in America contributes towards India's development in the various areas that GiveIndia works in. So that is my hope.
If we get every third Indian to give from US to India, we have solved the DAF size and scale problem.
Fantastic, and we've achieved world peace. Yeah, so thanks, Atul.
Thank you.
No, it's been great, working with you over the past several months, and looking forward to what is the start of a long journey together.
Absolutely, and I would love to say that we are looking for partnerships in India for the work that you guys are doing in India, as well as with the diaspora community in US. So would love to engage offline if there are any opportunities you guys feel. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.